My husband put me on speaker. I'm finalizing the divorce. His buddies were laughing. I said, "Oh, Linda." I'm laughing. Guess she doesn't realize you charged her condo down payment to my card, which I just cancelled. Have you ever stared into the face of utter betrayal, not from a stranger, but from the man you built your life with, and your so-called best friend, all while they're laughing in your face? Because I did, and in that moment, as my world imploded, a chilling clarity washed over me. My 25-year marriage wasn't just ending, it was a war, and they had just fired the first, incredibly stupid, shot. I was sitting in my office at Brenda's Reno and Design, trying to make sense of a blueprint that just felt off. Solid lines, but no flow. Kind of like my life lately. Everything looked fine on the surface, but underneath, it was all completely disjointed. The afternoon sun was cutting through the blinds, casting these long, sharp shadows across my mahogany desk. It was quiet, the kind of quiet you earn after 30 years of grinding it out in construction and design. Then my phone shattered the peace. It was a video call request from Gary, my husband. My stomach did that familiar little flip it had been doing for months. He never video called. Gary was a man of texts and grunts, especially since he retired from real estate 2 years ago. I tapped the green button, expecting to see his face, maybe hear him grumble about his gray suit jacket, or demand to know why his craft beer wasn't stocked. Instead, I was assaulted by a chaotic blur of neon lights and the deafening roar of a sports bar. The camera wasn't even facing him directly. It was propped up against a picture of beer, angled upwards. I could just make out his flushed, red chin and a ceiling fan spinning lazily above him, but I could hear him perfectly. "She picked up! She actually picked up!" Gary's voice was loud, slurred, and laced with an arrogance that made my skin crawl. "Hey, Brenda! You there?" "There. I got the guys here. And Linda! Linda. My best friend of 20 years. My heart hammered against my ribs. "I'm here, Gary," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the tremor I felt inside. I didn't yell. I didn't ask where he was. I just watched. The camera shifted. I saw the faces of his old drinking buddies, Mike, Steve, guys who hadn't held a steady job since the Bush administration. And then, leaning into the frame with a glassy giggle, was Linda. She waved, her fingers fluttering like she was greeting a fan, not the woman whose husband she was currently draped over. "We're celebrating, Brenda!" Gary shouted over the jukebox. "We are celebrating freedom!" "Freedom?" I asked, leaning back in my leather chair. A coldness settled over me then, like a protective layer of ice. "That's right. I'm at the lawyer's office. Well, we were just there." Gary laughed, clinking his glass against Linda's. "I told him to draw it up. I'm finalizing the divorce, babe. I'm done. I am done with the nagging. I am done with you controlling the purse strings. I need a woman who knows how to have fun. A woman who doesn't treat me like an employee." The table erupted in laughter. Linda covered her mouth, feigning shock, but her eyes were dancing with malice. "Oh, Gary, stop it," she purred, but she didn't move away. She leaned closer. "I'm serious," Gary yelled at the phone, addressing me like I was a heckler in a crowd. "I'm taking half, Brenda. Half the company, half the house, half the retirement. And I'm going to spend it on a life that doesn't smell like sawdust and old paint. So, consider this your notice. You're fired from being my wife." The laughter grew louder. It was an ugly sound. A sound that stripped away 25 years of marriage. Of me paying his debts. Of me holding his hand when his mother died. Of me building a life so he could stand on top of it and spit down on me. He thought I would cry. He thought I would beg. He thought he was watching a woman crumble. But he didn't know who he was dealing with. He didn't know that while he was drinking cheap beer and playing big shot, I had been busy. Oh, I had been so busy. He didn't know about the forensic accountant I'd hired 3 weeks ago. He didn't know about the notifications currently lighting up my email. I took a slow breath. The blueprint on my desk suddenly made perfect sense. I knew exactly where the wall needed to come down. "Gary," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the bar's noise like a diamond cutter. "Before you celebrate too hard, and before you sign anything." I paused. The smile on his face faltered just a fraction. The laughter at the table died down, sensing the shift in the air. "What?" he sneered. "You gonna beg me to stay?" "No," I said. "I just have a question." Let's rewind. To understand why I didn't shed a single tear during that call, you have to understand the slow, agonizing death of my marriage. It didn't happen overnight. It happened in moments. Small cuts that eventually bled me dry. It started about 6 months ago. A Tuesday morning. The kitchen was filled with the smell of brewing coffee and the damp chill of a Chicago autumn. I was at the island, reviewing a contract for a kitchen remodel in Evanston. Gary shuffled in around 10 a.m., scratching his stomach, wearing sweatpants that had seen better days. "Morning," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "There's coffee." He grunted, pouring himself a mug without looking at me. "Out of creamer," he muttered. "I put it on the list," I said. Then I decided to try again. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small, cream-colored envelope. Inside were tickets to a jazz show downtown for Friday night. We used to love jazz. "Hey," I was thinking. "Friday is our 25th anniversary. I got us tickets to the Blue Note. Dinner at that Italian place you liked beforehand. Just us. No phones, no talk about the business." Gary stopped stirring his coffee. He looked at the envelope in my hand like it was a subpoena. He walked over to the stainless steel refrigerator where our family calendar hung. It was color-coded, my work schedule in blue, bills in green, social events in red. He picked up a thick, red permanent marker. He uncapped it with his teeth. Then, with a squeak that set my teeth on edge, he drew a massive, aggressive X through Friday. "Don't plan anything cute," he said, not even turning around. "I'm busy." I sat there, the envelope heavy in my hand. "Busy, Gary? You haven't worked in 2 years. Busy with what?" He spun around, his eyes cold. "Stuff. Brenda, I have stuff. I need space. I need to find myself. You're always planning, always organizing. It's suffocating." No eye contact, no smile. Just the scratch of a marker and the thud of the fridge door. "I'm trying to celebrate us," I said, my voice trembling slightly. 25 years, Gary." 25 years of what?" he shot back. "Of you working? Of you being the big boss? You think because you bring in the paycheck you own my time? I'm not one of your contractors, Brenda, you can't just schedule me." He walked past me, grabbing a bagel on his way out. "Don't do the needy thing. It's pathetic." If I'd known this is what breakfast was going to be, I would have stayed in bed. I watched him leave. The kitchen suddenly felt massive and empty. I looked at the calendar. That red X looked less like a schedule change and more like a target. I came from nothing. My dad was a carpenter, a man who smelled like pine shavings and honest sweat. He taught me that if you want something built, you build it yourself. I built my company from a rusty pickup truck and a box of tools. I built this house. I built our life. I carried Gary when the real estate market crashed in 2008. I carried him when he got depressed. I carried him when he decided he was too senior to do entry-level sales again. I had been carrying him for so long, I forgot what it felt like to stand up straight. That morning, looking at the fridge, something clicked. It wasn't anger yet. It was clarity. He didn't want to celebrate us because, in his mind, there was no us. There was just me, the bank account, and him, the victim of my success. I put the tickets in the shredder by the pantry. The sound of the paper tearing was the only music we had that anniversary. Later that day, I saw a notification on our joint account. A charge for a florist, $150. I assumed stupidly that maybe he had felt bad. Maybe he bought me flowers to apologize for the morning. I drove home that evening with a spark of hope. I walked in, expecting a vase of roses on the island. Nothing. "Gary!" I called out. "In the den," he yelled back. He was watching football. "No flowers." "Did you buy anything today?" I asked, standing in the doorway. "Just gas," he said, not looking away from the TV. "Why? Checking up on me again? God, you're obsessed with money." I went upstairs to our bedroom. Empty of flowers. I checked the guest room. Nothing. The charge was real. The flowers were real. They just weren't for me. That was the first crack in the foundation. But like any good builder knows, by the time you see the crack, the structural damage is already done. A week after the anniversary disaster, I decided to try a different approach. Maybe the pressure of a date night was too much. Men can be weird about expectations, or so I told myself. I decided to cook. Gary loved my pot roast. Slow cooked for 8 hours with carrots, potatoes, and a red wine reduction. It was comfort food. It was safe. I left the office early, which I never do. I stopped at the butcher, picked up a prime cut, and spent the afternoon in the kitchen. I wanted the house to smell like home when he walked in. I wanted to remind him that I wasn't just the boss. I was his wife. I set the table. Candles, but not too romantic, just nice. I opened a bottle of the Cabernet he liked. 6 p.m. came and went. 7 p.m. The roast was ready, sitting in the warm oven. 8 p.m. I texted him. "Dinner is ready. Everything okay?" No reply. At 8:45, the garage door finally rumbled open. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, quickly followed by anxiety. Which Gary was walking through that door? The man I married? Or the stranger who drew X's on my calendar? He walked in, tossing his keys on the counter. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at the table. "Hey," I said, stepping forward. "I made pot roast." He stopped, sniffing the air. For a second, I saw a flicker of hunger, maybe even nostalgia, but then his face hardened. He looked at the set table, the wine, the candles. "I'm not hungry," he said flatly. "You haven't eaten," I said. "I made your favorite. It's been cooking all day, Gary." I grabbed a burger with Mike. He lied. I knew he was lying because the smell wafting off him wasn't grease or onions. It was perfume, a sickly sweet floral scent that clogged the back of my throat. And under that, the sharp tang of gin. "You smell like you've been in a bar," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. He spun on his heel, his face contorted with sudden rage. "Here we go. The Inquisition. Can't a man have a drink with his friends without getting the third degree? You are suffocating me, Brenda. You're like a warden." "I'm your wife," I said, feeling tears prick my eyes. "I cooked you dinner. I'm trying to connect with you." "That's not connection," he shouted, gesturing at the pot roast like it was a weapon. "That's pressure. That's manipulation. You do this nice thing so you can hold it over my head later. Oh, look at me, Saint Brenda, cooking dinner while Gary is out having a life. I see right through you." My heart hammered in my chest. "Manipulation, Gary? I just wanted to have a meal together." "You want control," he sneered. "You control the company. You control the house. You want to control what I eat and when I eat it. Well, I'm not hungry. Put it in a Tupperware or throw it out. I don't care." He stormed past me toward the stairs. As he passed, the scent of that perfume hit me again. It was distinct, lilac and musk. Cheap but potent. "Who were you with?" I asked to his retreating back. He stopped on the second step. He didn't turn around. "I was with people who appreciate me. People who don't treat me like a disappointment." "I don't treat you like a disappointment," I whispered. But the master bedroom door slammed shut upstairs, vibrating the floorboards. I stood there in the silence of my kitchen. The pot roast was still warm in the oven. The candles were flickering, casting dancing shadows on the walls. I felt small. I felt invisible. This is what they call gaslighting. I know the term now. Back then, I just thought I was going crazy. He made me feel like my kindness was aggression. He made me feel like asking for basic respect was a demand for total control. He twisted reality until I wasn't sure if the ground under my feet was solid. I blew out the candles. I didn't put the food away. I took the entire pot roast, the pan heavy in my hands, and walked to the trash can. I scraped it all in. The meat, the vegetables, the sauce. 8 hours of effort, gone in 10 seconds. I realized then that I wasn't cooking for my husband. I was cooking for a ghost. The man upstairs, the one smelling of gin and cheap lilacs, wasn't the man I promised to love and cherish. That night I slept in the guest room. He didn't come looking for me. The next day, I needed to talk to someone. I felt like I was drowning in my own house, and I needed a lifeline. Naturally, I called Linda. Linda and I had been friends since our kids were in kindergarten together. We bonded over PTA meetings and complaining about the pickup line. She was the fun one, the wild one. She'd been divorced for 5 years from a guy named Dave, a sweet man who worked in insurance. Linda always claimed Dave was boring and lacked ambition. But looking back, I think Dave just lacked a limitless bank account. We met at a little bistro near my office. I looked like a wreck, puffy eyes, barely any makeup. Linda, on the other hand, looked fantastic. She was wearing a new silk blouse. Her hair was freshly blown out, and she seemed to be glowing. "Oh, sweetie," she cooed when I sat down, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. Her nails were freshly manicured, a bright, aggressive red. "You look exhausted. Is it the business? Is the renovation on the lake house stalling again?" "It's Gary," I said, my voice cracking. I ordered a black coffee. I needed the caffeine to keep my brain functioning. "He's different. Angry. He didn't come home for our anniversary. Last night he blew up at me because I cooked dinner. He says I'm controlling. He says I'm suffocating him." Linda sighed, shaking her head sympathetically. "Oh, Brenda, they go through these phases, especially at his age. It's the male menopause. The midlife crisis without the sports car because, well, you know. Because he can't afford one." I finished for her. "Right," Linda said, taking a sip of her Chardonnay. It was 11 a.m. "Look, Brenda, I'm going to be honest with you, because I love you. You are a lot. I blinked. Excuse me? You're a powerhouse, she said quickly, smiling. That's why we love you. But for a man like Gary, who's feeling a bit emasculated right now, it's tough. You run the company, you pay the bills, you make the decisions. He probably feels like a guest in his own life. Maybe he's right. Maybe you are suffocating him a little. It felt like a slap. My best friend was agreeing with him. So, what am I supposed to do? I asked, feeling desperate. Stop working? Let us go bankrupt. No, silly. Linda laughed. Just loosen the leash. Give him space. Stop asking where he is every second. Stop tracking the credit card statements. Let him have his secrets. Let him feel like a man again. If he's out late, let him be out late. If he spends a little money, let him spend it. You can afford it, Brenda. You're rich. I'm comfortable because I work 80 hours a week. I corrected her. Exactly. Linda beamed. So, let him enjoy the fruits of your labor a little. It might save your marriage. Stop being the boss at home. Be the wife. The fun wife. She leaned back, swirling her wine. A scent wafted across the table. Lilac and musk. I froze. My nose twitched. It was faint, mixed with the smell of coffee and the bistro's garlic fries, but it was there. The exact same smell that had been on Gary's jacket the night before. That perfume, I said, my heart starting to race. It's lovely. Is it new? Linda's smile didn't falter, but her eyes did a quick, almost imperceptible dart to the side. Oh, this? Yeah, just something I picked up at the mall. Cheap thrill, you know me. It suits you, I said, my mind spinning. Thanks. She checked her watch. Oops, I have to run. I have a thing. A viewing. Getting back into the real estate game, maybe? She stood up, dropped a 20 on the table, and hugged me. Listen to me, Brenda. Back off. Let Gary breathe. Stop checking the accounts. Trust me on this. I watched her walk away. She had a bounce in her step. Stop checking the accounts. That was her advice. The woman who claimed to be my best friend told me to turn a blind eye to my husband's spending in his absence. And she smelled exactly like the friends Gary had been drinking with. I sat there for a long time. The coffee went cold. I realized then that I wasn't just fighting for my marriage. I was walking into a trap. And my best friend wasn't holding the lifeline. She was helping dig the pit. Trust you? I whispered to the empty chair. Not a chance in hell. Instead of going back to the office, I drove straight to my accountant's firm. If Linda wanted me to stop looking at the numbers, that was the biggest sign in the world that I needed to look closer than ever. My accountant, Steve, is a good man. He's the kind of guy who wears suspenders unironically and gets excited about tax loopholes. When I walked into his office without an appointment, the color drained from his face. Brenda! He stood up, scattering papers. Is everything okay? The IRS? I don't know, Steve. You tell me, I said, sitting down. I want to see the personal accounts. The joint checking, the savings, and the supplemental credit card I gave Gary 3 years ago. Steve hesitated. He shifted in his seat, adjusting his glasses. Brenda, you know, I usually send the quarterly reports to your email. Gary said he'd been handling the review with you at home. Gary said that, did he? My voice was calm, but my blood was boiling. Gary lied. Pull it up now. Steve typed rapidly. He turned the monitor toward me. It was a bloodbath. I'm a businesswoman. I know how to read a balance sheet. I know what cash flow looks like. What I was looking at wasn't cash flow. It was a hemorrhage. Start explaining, I said, pointing at a string of withdrawals. Well, Steve said, sweating. These are cash withdrawals. ATM limits were maxed out almost every day for the last 2 months. 500 here, 300 there. It adds up to about $12,000 in cash. $12,000 in cash. Gary didn't have a drug problem. He didn't gamble. Where was the cash going? And the credit card? I asked. Steve clicked another tab. This is where it gets heavier. We have charges for the steakhouse on Main for 9 times last month. Average bill $300. I knew that steakhouse. It was the most expensive place in town. I hadn't eaten there in a year. Gary was eating well. Hotels, I read from the screen. The Regency, the O'Hare Hilton. Why is he staying at hotels in our own city? He marked those as business networking in the expense notes, Steve said weakly. He doesn't have a business, Steve. I snapped. I took a breath. Scroll down. What is this charge? Lux Jewelry. $800. That was 2 weeks ago, Steve said. I assumed it was a gift for you for your anniversary. I touched my bare neck. No. No gift. Then I saw it. A recurring charge that made my stomach drop. LegalZoom and a retainer for Henderson and Associates. Steve looked confused. I thought maybe you two were updating your wills. Henderson is a divorce lawyer, I said, the realization hitting me like a freight train. Gary is using my money, our money, to pay a retainer to a divorce lawyer. I sat back in the chair. The room spun. It wasn't just an affair. It was an exit strategy. He was funding his departure with my paycheck. He was eating steaks, sleeping in hotels, buying jewelry for someone else, and prepping a legal assault, all while living in my house and eating my food. And look at this. I pointed to a charge from yesterday. It's pending. Dream Home Realty escrow. $5,000. Steve squinted. That's a deposit usually for a rental or a condo reservation. He's moving out. I whispered. He's setting up a new life. Brenda, I should have flagged this. Steve stammered. Gary called me last month. Said you guys were diversifying assets, moving cash around for a surprise investment. He told me not to bother you with the small stuff because you were stressed with the big hospital contract. He manipulated you too, I said. I wasn't mad at Steve. Gary was charming when he wanted to be. He was a salesman, after all. He just hadn't sold a house in years. He was selling lies. Print it all, I said. Every page, every receipt, every withdrawal slip. What are you going to do? Steve asked as the printer whirred to life. I'm going to stop being the victim, I said. I need you to open a new account, a trust for my niece's college fund. I want to move the maximum legal limit of liquid assets into it today. That will drain the joint account significantly. Steve warned. I know, I said. Leave enough for the bills and leave Gary's credit card active for now. I don't want him to know. Not yet. I walked out of that office with a stack of papers thick enough to choke a horse. The numbers didn't lie. Gary was stealing from me. He was cheating on me. And judging by the timing of the jewelry and the hotels, he wasn't alone. The smell of lilac and musk came back to me. Linda. Linda needed money. Linda liked steak. Linda had just told me to stop checking the accounts. I got into my car and gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a conspiracy. My husband and my best friend were cannibalizing my life. Okay, I said to the empty car. You want a war? You just declared one on the wrong woman. The next few days were a master class in acting. I went to work. I came home. I made simple dinners. I asked Gary how his day was. I watched him lie to my face. Oh, just working on some leads, he'd say, scrolling through his phone. Might have a buyer for that duplex on 4th. There was no buyer. There was no duplex. He was texting her. I knew it. I started tracking his mileage. I checked the odometer on his truck when he was in the shower. He was putting on 50 miles a day. Enough to drive to the next town over where nobody knew us. Enough to drive to Linda's apartment complex. On Thursday night, it was storming. A real Midwest thunderstorm that shook the windows. Gary came home late again. He was soaked, shivering. Car trouble, he grumbled, shaking off his umbrella. Got a flat on the highway. Had to change it in the rain. I looked at his hands. Clean. Not a speck of grease, not a smudge of brake dust. You don't change a tire in the rain without looking like you've been in a war. That's terrible, I said, handing him a towel. Go shower. I'll make you tea. Yeah, thanks, he muttered, rushing upstairs. As soon as I heard the water running, I grabbed my keys. I ran out into the rain to the driveway where his truck was parked. I needed to see. I opened the passenger door. The interior smelled faintly of wet dog and that perfume. Lilac. It was embedded in the fabric now. I turned on my phone's flashlight. I looked at the floor mats. Muddy footprints. Small ones. A woman's boot. Maybe a size 7. I'm a size 9. I shined the light into the crack between the seat and the center console. It's where things always fall. Loose change. French fries. Secrets. Something glinted. I reached down, my fingers digging into the upholstery. I felt something cold and sharp. I pulled it out. It was an earring. A single pearl drop earring with a distinctive gold twist setting. My breath hitched. I didn't just recognize it. I had bought it last year for Linda's 49th birthday. I had gone to a custom jeweler. I wanted to get her something special to my sister from another mister. The card had read. I remembered Linda putting them on, squealing with delight, hugging me. I'll never take them off, she had promised. Well, one of them was off now. In my husband's truck. I sat there in the passenger seat, the rain drumming on the roof like gunfire. The earring felt heavy in my palm. It was the final nail in the coffin. There was no more maybe. There was no more coincidence. Gary wasn't just cheating. He was cheating with the one person I confided in. The one person who knew all my secrets, all my insecurities. They were probably laughing about me right now, discussing how controlling I was while spending my money and wearing my gifts. I gripped the earring tight enough to hurt. I could have marched upstairs right then. I could have thrown the earring in his face. I could have screamed until the windows shattered. But I remembered the lawyer's retainer on the bank statement. I remembered the advice I'd read online about high-conflict divorce. If I confronted him now, he'd deny it. He'd hide the assets. He'd warn Linda. They would circle the wagons. No. I needed to be smarter. I needed to be colder. I put the earring in my pocket. I wiped the mud from the floor mat with a tissue from my pocket to cover my tracks. I closed the truck door gently. I walked back into the house dripping wet. Gary was coming down the stairs, dried off, wearing a fresh t-shirt. "What were you doing outside?" he asked, suspicious. "Checking the gutters." I lied smoothly. "Thought they were overflowing." "You're obsessed with house maintenance." He rolled his eyes. "Where's my tea?" "Coming right up," I said. I went to the kitchen and made his tea. I watched him drink it. I watched him text on his phone, a small smile playing on his lips. Enjoy it, Gary, I thought. Enjoy the tea. Enjoy the secret texts. Enjoy the illusion that you're the one in control. Because I just found the murder weapon, and I'm about to bury you with it. That night I didn't sleep. I lay awake planning. I needed professional help. I couldn't do this alone. I needed a shark. The next morning, I didn't go to the office. I drove to the city, to a building that looked like it was made of greystone and intimidation. This was the office of Arthur Henderson. Yes, the same Henderson Gary had paid a retainer to. But here's the thing about Gary. He's lazy. He paid the retainer online to Locke and the lawyer, but he hadn't actually signed the conflict of interest paperwork yet. He hadn't established privilege. I checked with the firm first thing in the morning. Gary was just a name in their billing system, not a client of record yet. So I walked in. "I need to see Mr. Henderson," I told the receptionist. "I'm Brenda, the one whose credit card paid a retainer fee." 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from Arthur Henderson. He was an older man, silver hair, eyes like a hawk. He looked at the bank statement I slid across his desk. "Your husband paid us with your joint funds," Henderson said, his voice grave. "But he hasn't come in for a consultation." "Correct," I said. "Which means you don't represent him yet. But I want to hire you. And since I'm the one who actually paid, and I'm here." Henderson smiled. It was a shark smile. "I like your style, Brenda. Technically, until engagement letters are signed, he's just a prospective inquiry. If you sign with me now, I'm conflicted out of representing him. I can't represent both parties." "Where do I sign?" I asked. We spent the next hour strategizing. Henderson listened to everything. The cash withdrawals, the hidden credit card charges, the earring. "This is dissipation of marital assets," Henderson explained. "In Illinois, if a spouse spends marital funds on an affair or for purposes unrelated to the marriage while the marriage is undergoing an irreconcilable breakdown, they have to pay it back. We can deduct every steak dinner, every hotel room, and every dollar spent on his girlfriend from his share of the final settlement." "I want him out of the house," I said. "But he won't leave." "You need cause," Henderson said. "Is he violent?" "He's verbally abusive. He breaks things. He screams. He gaslights me." "Record it," Henderson said. "Illinois is a two-party consent state for audio, so be careful. But video in common areas of your own home for security purposes? That's different. Install cameras. Get footage of his outbursts. If he threatens you, we file for an emergency order of protection that gets him kicked out immediately by the sheriff." "Done," I said. "Also," Henderson leaned in, "you need a PI. You know about the affair, but you need proof. Irrefutable proof, not just an earring. Photos, dates, times. If we can prove he's cohabitating with her or planning to use your money to buy property with her, we crush him in court." He slid a business card across the desk. "Hank Miller, Private Investigations." "Hank is expensive," Henderson warned. "But he gets the shot." I left the lawyer's office and called Hank immediately. We met at a diner off the interstate. Hank looked exactly like a TV detective. Worn leather jacket, tired eyes, drinking black coffee. "Husband?" Hank asked before I even sat down. "Husband and best friend," I corrected. Hank raised an eyebrow. "Ouch. That's the doubleheader." Give me the details. I gave him everything. Gary's license plate. Linda's address. The times Gary usually disappeared. I need to know what they are planning. I said. It's not just sex. They are spending money. Big money. I'll put a tracker on his car. Hank said. Legal. As long as your name is on the title. It is, I said. I paid for the truck. Then we're good. Give me 3 days. I'll get you a portfolio. Driving home, I felt a strange sensation. For the first time in months, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't confused. I had a team. I had a lawyer who knew the law better than Gary knew beer brands. I had a detective who could find a needle in a haystack. And I had something Gary didn't have, the element of surprise. I stopped at an electronics store on the way home. I bought 3 nanny cams disguised as USB chargers and smoke detectors. I got home before Gary. I set up the cameras in the kitchen, the living room, and the hallway. I synced them to a hidden app on my phone. When Gary walked in that night, kicking off his shoes and yelling about the house being too hot, I watched him on my phone screen from the laundry room. Smile, Gary, I thought. You're on candid camera. 3 days later, Hank called me. Meet me at the diner. You're going to want to see this sitting down. My stomach nodded. Knowing the truth is one thing. Seeing it printed out in glossy 8x10s is another. I slid into the booth opposite Hank. He didn't waste time with small talk. He pushed a manila envelope across the sticky table. It's worse than you thought, Hank said softly. I opened the envelope. The first photo was standard affair stuff. Gary and Linda walking into a motel on the outskirts of town. Gary's hand was on the small of her back. Linda was laughing, throwing her head back. They looked happy. That hurt. They looked like a couple in love, not 2 people destroying a family. Keep going, Hank said. The next photos were taken yesterday. They weren't at a motel. They were at a luxury condo complex downtown, the Lakeside Towers. They spent 2 hours in there with a realtor. Hank narrated. I ran the plates on the realtor. She's top tier. Sells places starting at $500,000. There was a photo of them standing on a balcony looking out at the city. Gary was pointing at something, looking like a king surveying his kingdom. Linda was leaning on his shoulder. And here's the kicker. Hank tapped the last photo. It was zoomed in through a window of a coffee shop where they went afterward. They had papers spread out on the table. I have a long lens, Hank explained. I got a shot of the document. I squinted at the grainy image. It was a financing application. And right there under assets was a list. Brenda's Reno and Design, 50% share. Marital home equity value, $600,000. Joint retirement fund. He's listing your company as collateral. I whispered, my hand shaking. He thinks he already owns half of it. He's counting his chickens. Hank agreed. But look at the co-borrower. I looked. Linda Miller. She's putting her name on the loan application with him. Hank said. They aren't just hooking up, Brenda. They are building a financial portfolio based on your divorce settlement before you've even filed. Can they do this? I asked. Not legally, Hank said. He's misrepresenting his assets. He can't pledge half your company until a judge awards it to him, which hasn't happened. This is fraud. Technically, bank fraud if he signs it. I stared at the photos. The betrayal went deeper than sex. This was theft. Linda wasn't just stealing my husband. She was helping him carve up my life's work like a Thanksgiving turkey. They were planning their future in a penthouse paid for by my sweat and tears. There's one more thing, Hank said, hesitating. I have audio. I used a parabolic mic when they were on the balcony. Play it, I said. Hank put an earbud in my ear. I heard the wind, then Gary's voice, clear as day. Don't worry, babe. The old hag is clueless. She's so desperate to keep me, she's cooking roasts and buying tickets. I'll string her along until the bonus check clears in her business account next month. Then I file. We take the cash. We take the payout, and she'll be working until she's 80 to pay me alimony. Then Linda's voice. God, you're smart. I can't wait to get out of my dump. She's so boring, Gary. You deserve this. We deserve this. The old hag. I repeated, taking the earbud out. I felt a cold calm settle over me. It replaced the hurt. It replaced the anger. It was pure, distilled hatred. You okay? Hank asked. I'm better than okay, I said, putting the photos back in the envelope. I have everything I need. What's the play? Hank asked. He wants to wait for the bonus check. I stood up. He wants to act like I'm the fool? Fine. I'll let him think he's winning. I'm going to let him walk right off the cliff he just built. I paid Hank in cash. I drove home with the envelope on the passenger seat. I looked at the road, But all I could see was Gary's face in that photo. Looking at the condo he thought he was buying with my money. You want a performance, Gary? I thought I'll give you the performance of a lifetime. I walked into the house. Gary was on the couch. Hey, he grunted. Hey, honey, I said, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I was thinking maybe you're right. I have been too controlling with the money. Maybe we should talk about giving you more access for your investments. Gary sat up, his eyes lighting up with greed. Really? 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 I lied. The words tasted like ash in my mouth, but I forced a smile. I've been so focused on the business, on building our retirement, that I forgot to let you lead. I know you have big ideas, Gary. I know you have vision. His chest puffed out. It was pathetic how easy he was to manipulate. You just had to feed his ego. Well, I've been saying that for years, Brenda. I have a lot of potential deals in the pipeline. Real estate is bouncing back. Exactly, I said. And you need capital to make those deals. You can't be asking me for permission every time you need to take a client to dinner or put down a deposit. I reached into my bag and pulled out a sleek black envelope. I spoke to the bank. I authorized a secondary card on my primary business line of credit. It has a $50,000 limit. It's for investment opportunities. I handed it to him. Gary looked at the card like it was the Holy Grail. His hands actually shook slightly. He wasn't seeing a credit card. He was seeing the condo deposit. He was seeing weekends away with Linda. He was seeing the freedom to leave me. Brenda, this is a big step, he said, trying to sound solemn, but a smirk was twitching at the corner of his mouth. I appreciate you finally trusting me. I do trust you, I said. I trust you to hang yourself with the rope I just handed you. But Gary, there's one catch. It's a new account, so the fraud protection is high. If you make a big purchase, like over a few thousand, just give me a heads up so I can clear it with the bank app. Otherwise, it might decline. Sure. He waved his hand dismissively. I'm not going crazy. Just business expenses, right? Business, I agreed. That night, I heard him in the garage making a call. I checked the audio feed from the hidden camera I'd installed near the tool bench. Babe, you won't believe it, Gary whispered. The old cow just handed me a $50K credit line. She literally gave me the money to leave her. We can put the deposit down on the lakeside tower next week. There was a pause. Yeah, I know. She's clueless. It's almost too easy. I watched him on my phone screen, pacing in the garage, high on his own arrogance. He thought he had played me. He thought he was the predator. Little did he know that credit card was the bait, and he had just swallowed the hook. I maintained the charade for another 10 days. I cooked his favorite meals. I stopped asking where he was going at night. When he came home smelling of lilac perfume, I didn't flinch. I just asked if he closed the deal. Almost, he'd say with a wink. Almost closed. Every time he smiled at me with that secret smug look, I added another mental zero to the settlement I was going to extract from him. It was exhausting. Pretending to be a doormat when you're actually the door slammer takes a toll. But I had my sessions with Henderson, my lawyer, to keep me sane. We were building a fortress of evidence. Every text he sent Linda, every dollar he spent on that new card, which I was tracking in real time, every lie he told, it was all going into the file labeled dissipation of assets. Gary thought he was planning a surprise attack. He didn't realize he was marching his troops directly into an ambush. Just a few more days, I told my reflection in the mirror one morning. Hold it together, Brenda. The finale is going to be spectacular. While Gary was busy fantasy shopping for furniture for his love nest with Linda, I was executing a financial maneuver that would have made Wall Street proud. The key to a high-asset divorce isn't just about who gets the house. It's about liquidity. Cash is king. And right now, Gary had access to our joint checking account, which held about $80,000, our emergency fund, our operating cash. If he filed for divorce first, a judge would freeze those assets. Or worse, Gary would drain the account before filing, claiming it was for marital debts, or living expenses, and I'd have to fight for years to get it back. I wasn't going to let that happen. I met with Steve, my accountant, and Henderson early on a Monday morning. The trust, I said. Is it ready? The Brenda Miller Family Trust is established. Henderson nodded. It's an irrevocable trust set up for the benefit of your niece's education and future welfare. Perfectly legal estate planning. You are the trustee. Good, I said. Transfer $75,000 from the joint checking account into the trust today. Steve looked nervous. Brenda, that leaves the joint account with $5,000. Gary is going to notice. That's the point, I said. I want the money out of his reach. If he asks, I'll tell him I moved it to a high-yield bond for tax purposes. He doesn't understand taxes. He'll believe it. And the credit card you gave him? Henderson asked. The one with a $50,000 limit? I smiled. That's the best part. It's a sub-account on my business line. I have administrative privileges. I can lower the limit or suspend the card instantly from my phone. So you gave him a card that works until you decide it doesn't? Henderson chuckled. Brutal. Necessary, I corrected. He's planning to use that card to put the down payment on the condo. The closing is scheduled for this Friday. I saw the calendar invite on his iPad. Friday, Henderson mused. That's 3 days away. Exactly. I need you to have the emergency order of protection ready to file on Friday morning, I said. I have the video footage of his outburst last week, the one where he threw the vase and threatened to burn the house down if I didn't stop asking questions. Is it enough? Henderson reviewed the file. Again, with the audio of him plotting to defraud you and the video of the violent threat, in Cook County? Yes, it's enough for an ex parte order. That means we go to the judge without Gary being there. The judge grants it based on the immediate threat. The sheriff serves him, and he has 10 minutes to grab his toothbrush and leave the premises. Perfect, I said. I left the office and checked my banking app. The transfer was complete. The joint account, which Gary thought was his personal piggy bank for his new life, was now a skeleton. The money was safe in the trust, untouchable. When I got home, Gary was in a good mood. Too good. He was humming in the kitchen, making a sandwich. Hey, hon, he said. Did you see the market today? Up 50 points. I didn't notice, I said, putting my keys in the bowl. Gary, I moved some funds around today. Just tax stuff. The joint account will look low, but don't worry, it's invested. He paused, a flicker of panic in his eyes. Moved? Moved where? How much? Most of it, I said casually, opening the fridge. Steve said we needed to offset the capital gains from the business. It's locked up for 6 months. But you have that credit card I gave you, right? So we're fine for daily expenses. Relief washed over his face. He actually let out a breath. Oh, okay. Yeah, the credit card. That's fine. Smart move, babe. Investing is smart. He didn't care about the cash because he thought he had the magic plastic. He thought the credit card was his golden ticket. He didn't realize I had just severed his main artery and handed him a tourniquet that I could tighten at will. By the way, he said, taking a bite of his sandwich, the guys are having a thing on Friday afternoon at the bar. Celebrating Mike's birthday. I might be late. Friday, I repeated. Sure. Have fun. I knew it wasn't Mike's birthday. Friday was the closing date for the condo. Friday was the day he planned to sign the papers, swipe my card for the deposit, and then serve me with divorce papers over the weekend. I will, he grinned. It's going to be a big day. Yes, I agreed, looking at the knife block on the counter. It certainly is. He had no idea that while he was planning a celebration, I was planning an eviction. 2 days before the end, we had one last public performance. Our neighbors, the Johnsons, host an annual summer kickoff barbecue. It's a neighborhood institution. Burgers, cheap beer, kids running through sprinklers, and gossip flying faster than the mosquitoes. Usually Gary would skip it, claiming he had work. But this year he insisted we go. We should make an appearance, he said, adjusting his polo shirt in the mirror. Look like the happy couple. Keep up appearances, right? He wanted witnesses. He wanted people to see us acting normal so that when he blindsided me, he could tell everyone. I don't know what happened. She just snapped. We walked over around 2 p.m. The party was in full swing. And standing by the cooler, holding a white wine spritzer, was Linda. Of course, she was there. She lived 3 streets over, but she was always at our block parties. She was wearing a sundress that was a little too short and a little too tight for a family barbecue. Brenda! Gary! She waved, her voice shrill. We walked over. Gary immediately grabbed a beer and stood a little too close to her. Hey, Linda, I said, putting on my sunglasses to hide the disgust in my eyes. Great turnout, Gary said, looking around. He spoke loudly, projecting his voice. Man, it's good to relax. Brenda here has been working me to the bone, haven't you, honey? He draped a heavy arm around my shoulder. It felt like a yoke. We all work hard, Gary, I said stiffly. Oh, come on, he laughed, jostling me. She's a slave driver. You know, Linda, I keep telling her she needs to retire. Look at her. She's stressed. The wrinkles are getting deeper by the day. The small group of neighbors around us went quiet. It was an awkward, mean-spirited joke. Linda giggled. Oh, stop it, Gary. Brenda looks distinguished. Besides, at our age, we can't all look 25. She purred, smoothing her dress, clearly implying she was the exception. Speak for yourself. Gary winked at Linda. I feel 25. I've got a second wind coming. Big changes on the horizon. He raised his beer in a toast to nobody in particular. To new chapters and upgrading. The neighbors exchanged uncomfortable glances. They sensed it. The disrespect, the weird energy between Gary and Linda. I stood there feeling the heat of the sun and the heat of my own rage. He was mocking me in public. He was essentially toasting to his affair right in front of my face. I decided to test the waters. Upgrading? I asked, my voice calm. Are you planning on buying a new car, Gary? With what money? The air went ice cold. Gary's smile faltered. His eyes narrowed. I have resources, Brenda. You don't know everything. I know enough, I said enigmatically. Linda stepped in, sensing the tension. So, Brenda, I heard you're renovating the kitchen at the lake house. Are you going with granite or quartz? I haven't decided, I said, turning to her. I'm thinking of tearing the whole thing down. Sometimes the foundation is rotten, Linda. And when the foundation is rotten, you don't just change the countertops. You bulldoze the whole structure and clear the trash. I stared at her, locked eyes. For a second, the mask slipped. Linda looked terrified. She saw something in my face. Not the pushover friend, but the businesswoman who negotiated contracts with steel unions. Well, she stammered. That sounds drastic. It's necessary, I said. Excuse me, I need a fresh drink. This one tastes sour. I walked away, leaving them standing there. As I moved through the crowd, I heard snippets of whispers. Did you see how he looked at Linda? Why is he treating Brenda like that? He's drunk, and she looks done. I went to the bathroom inside the Johnson's house to splash water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. Gary was right about one thing. I looked tired. But it wasn't the tiredness of age. It was the exhaustion of carrying a dead weight. 2 days, I whispered to my reflection. Just 2 more days. When I came back out, Gary and Linda were in a corner whispering intensely. Gary looked agitated. Linda looked like she was trying to calm him down. They looked like conspirators whose plan had hit a snag. Good. Let them sweat. We walked home in silence. Gary passed out on the couch at 6 p.m. I went into his home office, a room he rarely used for actual work, and checked his iPad. It was unlocked. I opened his email. There was a confirmation from the realtor. Friday, 2 p.m. Lakeside Towers closing. Bring the deposit check or credit card authorization for $45,000. I also saw an email draft to Henderson's law firm. Subject: divorce filing. Body: I want to serve her on Monday. Make sure the papers are ready. I want full custody of the dog just to spite her. He wanted the dog. My golden retriever, Buster. The dog I walked every morning. The dog Gary kicked out of the room because he shed. That was it. He could take the money. He could take the pride. But threatening to take my dog just to hurt me? That was a declaration of nuclear war. I deleted the draft so he wouldn't know I saw it. Then I went upstairs, packed a small bag for Buster, and put it in my car trunk. Don't worry, boy, I whispered, scratching Buster's ears. Daddy is going on a long trip, and he's not coming back. Friday morning arrived with the sky the color of a bruise. It was humid, the air thick and heavy, threatening a storm that wouldn't break. I woke up at 5 a.m. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to Gary snore, memorizing the sound so I could savor the silence later. I got dressed in my best suit, my closing deal armor. Navy blue, sharp lines, killer heels. Gary woke up around 8. He was jittery. He put on cologne. Too much of it. He wore his lucky watch. Big day at the site? He asked, seeing me in my suit. Huge, I said. I have a lot of loose ends to cut. Me too, he grinned, a nervous, twitchy smile. I'm meeting Mike and the guys at the bar around noon. Might be late. Don't forget your wallet, I said. Got it right here. He patted his pocket where the black credit card, the trap, was resting. See you later, Brenda. He didn't kiss me goodbye. He just grabbed his keys and walked out. He whistled as he walked to the truck. He thought he was walking toward freedom. As soon as his taillights disappeared around the corner, I pulled out my phone. Execute, I texted Henderson. Then I called the locksmith. You can come now. He's gone. Then I called the security company. I need my alarm codes changed immediately, and remove user 2 from the system. For the next 3 hours, my house was a hive of activity. The locksmith, a burly guy named Tony who had done work for my company for years, drilled out the deadbolts. You okay, Brenda? He asked as the metal shavings fell to the porch. Never better, Tony, I said. Install the heavy-duty ones, the reinforced strikers. Inside I was packing. Not my stuff, his. I didn't pack nicely. I didn't fold his shirts. I grabbed heavy-duty contractor trash bags. I swept his clothes from the closet directly into the bags, hangers and all. His shoes, his toiletries, his collection of golf magazines. Everything went into the bags. I dragged the bags, 6 of them, to the curb. It looked like trash day, but it wasn't. It was garbage day in a spiritual sense. At 11:03 a.m., Henderson called. The judge signed the order, he said. His voice was crisp. Emergency order of protection granted based on the threats of arson and violence captured on your video. The sheriff has the paperwork. They are on standby. If he shows up, he can be arrested if he tries to enter. Thank you, Arthur, I said. Also, Henderson added, we filed the divorce petition concurrently. He'll be served with both at the same time if he comes to the house, or we can serve him at the bar. Let him come to the house, I said. I want him to see the locks. At 12 p.m., I received a notification on my phone from the banking app. Transaction alert, $200 at O'Malley's pub status, approved. He was buying a round of drinks for his buddies. Liquid courage before the big signing. I let it go through. Let him have one last drink on me. At 1:45 p.m., I sat down at my desk in my home office. I opened the banking admin portal on my laptop. I pulled up the sub-account for the credit card ending in 4598, the one in Gary's pocket. I hovered my mouse over the button labeled Suspend account / report lost or stolen. I waited. My phone rang at 2:05 p.m. It was a video call. I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I had been rehearsing in the shower, in the car, in my dreams for weeks. I answered. The screen filled with the chaos of the bar. Gary's red face. Linda's smirk. The laughter of his loser friends. I'm finalizing the divorce, babe, he shouted. I listened to his speech. I listened to him brag about taking half. I listened to him fire me as his wife. And then I spoke. Gary, I said, my voice steady. Before you celebrate too hard, and before you sign anything. What? He sneered. I just have a question, I said. The bar noise seemed to fade into the background. Oh, and what is that? He mocked. Is Linda laughing? I asked pleasantly. Because I see her there. Hi, Linda. Linda froze. Her eyes went wide. She hadn't realized she was on camera. Guess she doesn't know, I continued, my voice dropping an octave, becoming lethal, that you're about to put her condo down payment on my credit card. Gary blinked. It's my card now, Brenda. You gave it to me. Actually, I said, my finger hovering over the mouse button on my laptop. I gave you a card linked to my business. And since I'm the administrator, I clicked the mouse. Click. On my screen, a confirmation box popped up. Card suspended. Reported stolen. I just canceled it, I said. Reported it stolen, actually. So if you tried to swipe it for $45,000 in about 10 minutes, well, that's a felony, Gary. Credit card fraud. The color drained from Gary's face so fast he looked like a corpse. You can't, he stammered. I just did, I smiled. Oh, and Gary, don't bother coming home. The locks are changed. The police have an order of protection against you. Your clothes are on the curb. If you step foot on my driveway, you're going to jail. I leaned into the camera. Happy anniversary, darling. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. It was the kind of silence that happens after a bomb goes off, before the screaming starts. For a solid 5 seconds, Gary just stared at the phone screen. His mouth hung open, a piece of half-chewed pretzel visible on his tongue. The arrogance, the swagger, the big man energy. It evaporated instantly, replaced by sheer, unadulterated panic. Linda was the first to react. She grabbed Gary's arm. What did she say? What does she mean? The card is cancelled? Her voice was shrill, cutting through the background noise of the bar. Gary, the closing is in 20 minutes. We have the appointment. Gary looked at Linda, then back at the phone, then back at Linda. He looked like a rat trapped in a maze that had suddenly caught fire. Brenda, he croaked. You're joking. You can't do this. That money, that was our investment. My investment, I corrected him. And I decided to divest from bad assets, namely you. I'll sue you, he shouted, trying to regain control for his audience of drinking buddies. I'll take everything. I'll tell the judge you cut me off financially. Go ahead, I said calmly. Tell the judge. Tell him how you plan to use marital funds to buy a love nest for your mistress. Tell him about the fraud. Tell him about the threats you made to burn my house down, which, by the way, I have on video and have already submitted to the court. Video? Gary whispered. Every room, Gary, I said. I've seen everything. I've heard everything. I heard you call me an old hag on the balcony. I heard you plotting to bleed me dry. Linda gasped. She pulled her hand away from his arm as if he were radioactive. She knew. In that instant, she knew the game was over. She wasn't looking at a sugar daddy anymore. She was looking at a broke, middle-aged man with pending criminal charges. Gary, Linda hissed. Does the card work or not? It has to. Gary stammered. He looked at the waiter passing by. Hey, let me tab out. He fumbled for the black card. He threw it on the table with trembling hands. Run it. Just run it for the drinks. I watched in high definition. The waiter took the card. He walked to the terminal. Gary held his breath. Linda held her breath. Even his drunk friends stopped laughing and watched. The waiter swiped. He frowned. He swiped again. He walked back to the table. Sir, it's declined. The machine says, pick up card stolen. Dot. The waiter pulled the card back. I have to keep this, sir. Bank policy. No. Gary lunged for it. Give it back. It's a mistake. She's crazy. Sir, don't touch me. The waiter stepped back. Do you have another form of payment? Gary patted his pockets. He looked at Linda. Babe, do you have your card? The look Linda gave him could have frozen hell over. It was a look of pure revulsion. My card? She spat. You told me you were handling this. You told me you were liquid. I am. I will be. Gary pleaded. It's just a glitch. Brenda is messing with us. I'm not messing with you, Gary. I said to the phone, my voice crisp and clear. I'm finalizing the divorce. Just like you wanted. Linda stood up. She grabbed her purse. I'm leaving. Linda, wait. Gary yelled. The condo? The appointment? There is no condo, you idiot. Linda screamed. You're broke. You're homeless. I'm not going down with you. She stormed out of the frame. Gary watched her go, his face crumbling. He looked back at the phone. At me. Brenda. He whimpered. Please don't do this. I love you. I laughed. It was a genuine laugh. You don't love me, Gary. You love my wallet. And my wallet just filed a restraining order. I reached for the red end call button. Don't come home. I said one last time. The police are watching the driveway. I tapped the screen. The connection severed. The chaos, the noise, the pathetic face of my ex-husband. It all vanished. Replaced by the calm, silent wallpaper of my phone. I sat back in my chair. My heart was pounding. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. From the sheer electric rush of taking my power back. I looked at my hands. They weren't shaking. They were steady. I didn't need a camera at the realtor's office to know what happened next. But the grapevine in a small town is faster than fiber optics. Plus, the realtor, Sarah, is a friend of my accountant. I got the full report later. Apparently, Gary didn't give up. Delusion is a powerful drug. After Linda stormed out of the bar, he chased her down in the parking lot. He must have convinced her it was just a technical glitch, a security hold. Because the transaction was large. He probably promised her he would write a check or that he had hidden cash. Somehow, he dragged her to the appointment at Lakeside Towers. Imagine the scene. Gary sweating, smelling of stale beer and desperation. Linda, mascara smudged, arms crossed, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else. And Sarah, the polished realtor, waiting with the contracts. We're ready to sign, Gary announced, slapping his hand on the desk. Sorry about the card. My ex-wife is playing games, but I have the account numbers right here. He tried to give them the routing number for the joint account, the one I had drained 3 days ago. Sarah ran the verification. Mr. Miller, Sarah said, sliding her glasses down her nose. This account has a balance of $4,000. The required deposit is $45,000. Check it again. Gary yelled. There's 80 grand in there. There was, Sarah said coolly. Until Monday. It appears the funds were transferred out. Gary turned purple. He realized then that I hadn't just cut the credit card. I had scorched the earth. Then came the coup de grace. Linda's phone pinged. It was a notification from a local real estate blog, or maybe just a text from a friend who was at the bar. Word was out. Gary Miller is broke. His wife kicked him out. Linda stood up. She didn't scream this time. She went cold. You lied to me. Babe, I can fix this. Gary pleaded. You can't fix anything, she said. You're a loser, Gary. You're a loser when I met you. And you're a loser now. I'm not losing my reputation for a man who can't even buy me a drink, let alone a condo. She walked out of the office. She got into her car and drove off, leaving him standing there with nothing but a declined bank transfer and a severe hangover. Back at my house, the sun was setting. The air was cooling down, but the tension was rising. I knew he was coming. He had nowhere else to go. I stood by the front window, behind the curtain. My phone buzzed. It was the security system alert. Motion detected. Driveway. A taxi pulled up. Gary didn't even have his truck. He must have been too drunk to drive. Or maybe Linda took the keys in spite. He stumbled out of the cab. He looked at the house. His house. My house. He saw the bags. 6 black, heavy-duty trash bags lined up neatly on the curb like soldiers. He stared at them. He kicked one. A golf shoe fell out. He looked at the front door. He marched up the steps. His face twisted in rage. He jammed his key into the lock. It didn't turn. He jiggled it. He pushed. He slammed his shoulder against the wood. The new, reinforced deadbolt didn't budge. Brenda! He screamed. Open the damn door. I live here. I didn't answer. I just watched. He picked up a porch chair and raised it, looking like he was going to smash the window. That's when I pressed the button on my phone. Call 911. 911, what is your emergency? My estranged husband is attempting to break into my home. I said clearly. I have an active emergency order of protection against him. He is violent and currently smashing furniture on my porch. Officers are already on the way, ma'am. The dispatcher said. We received calls from your neighbors. I looked across the street. The Johnsons were on their porch. Mrs. Higgins next door was peering through her blinds. The whole neighborhood was watching the king of the castle have a meltdown on his front lawn. Gary threw the chair. It bounced off the brickwork. He fell to his knees sobbing. It wasn't a sad sob. It was the angry, entitled cry of a toddler who had been told no for the first time in his life. Blue lights flashed at the end of the street. I took a sip of my tea. Earl Grey hot, just the way I like it. 2 squad cars pulled up. 4 deputies stepped out. This wasn't a courtesy call. This was an enforcement action. Gary was still on the porch, banging on the door with his fist. Let me in. It's my house. You can't steal my house. Sir, a deputy shouted, hand resting on his holster. Step away from the door now. Gary spun around, looking wild. She changed the locks. That's illegal. I live here. Sir, are you Gary Miller? Yes. I'm the victim here. Mr. Miller. The deputy walked up the driveway, holding a piece of paper. We have an order of protection signed by Judge Walters this morning. You are to vacate these premises immediately and stay 500 feet away from Brenda Miller. That's a lie. Gary screamed. He pointed at the window where I was standing. He couldn't see me, but he knew I was there. She's manipulating you. She's crazy. Sir, turn around and put your hands behind your back, the deputy said, his patience gone. For what? For disorderly conduct, attempted breaking and entering, and violation of a court order. You're under arrest. I watched as they cuffed him. The metal clicked. It was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. Better than any "I love you" he had ever faked. They walked him down the driveway. He was stumbling, shouting obscenities. He passed the trash bags on the curb. My stuff, he yelled. She threw out my Armani suits. We'll have an officer collect your essential items later, the deputy said, shoving him into the back of the cruiser. As the car pulled away, I stepped out onto the porch. The evening air was cool. The neighborhood was silent again. The Johnsons across the street raised a hand in a tentative wave. I waved back. I wasn't embarrassed. I was liberated. I walked down the steps to the curb. I checked the bags to make sure they hadn't spilled. I wanted him to have his clothes. I wanted him to have exactly what belonged to him, and nothing more. My phone rang. It was Henderson. Did it happen? He asked. He's in the back of a squad car, I said. Good, Henderson said. That cements the violation. He won't be getting back into that house anytime soon. I'll arrange for his lawyer, if he gets one, to pick up his belongings from a storage unit. Don't keep them on the curb. It looks messy for the court. I'll have them moved to storage tomorrow, I said. Brenda. Henderson paused. You did good. Most people fold. You didn't. I folded for 25 years, Arthur, I said. I'm done folding. That night, the house felt huge, but it didn't feel empty. It felt clean. For the first time in years, the air didn't smell of his stale beer or his resentment. It smelled of lemon polish and possibility. I slept in the middle of the king-size bed. Buster, my dog, hopped up and curled at my feet. Gary hated the dog on the bed. "Your bed now, buddy," I whispered. The next morning, the fallout began. Gary called from the county jail. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Brenda, please. I messed up. I'm sorry. Bail me out. I don't have anyone. Linda won't pick up. Mom is in Florida. Please, babe. I love you." I listened to it once, then I saved it. Not to listen to again, but as evidence. Evidence of his cycle: abuse, discard, regret, hoovering. It's a textbook pattern. And I had closed the book. I called the storage company. "I need a small unit. Prepaid for 1 month. After that, if the owner doesn't pay, you can auction it." I hired 2 neighborhood kids to haul the bags to the storage unit. I texted the code to Gary's phone. "Your belongings are at you store it. Unit 4B. Code 1234. Rent is paid for 30 days. Good luck." Then I blocked his number. The legal battle that followed was less of a fight and more of a systematic dismantling. Gary tried to hire a lawyer, a flashy guy from billboards who promised father's rights. But lawyers need retainers. And Gary had no money. His credit cards were maxed out or cancelled. He had no access to the joint funds. Linda had abandoned him. He ended up with a court-appointed mediator for the initial hearings. We met in a conference room 3 weeks later. Gary looked terrible. He had lost weight. He was wearing a wrinkled suit, probably one from the bags. He wouldn't look me in the eye. Henderson laid it all out on the table. The dissipation of assets claim was our hammer. "Your Honor," Henderson told the mediator, "Mr. Miller spent approximately $40,000 of marital funds on his paramour, Miss Linda Davis, over the last 6 months. We have receipts for hotels, jewelry, dining, and travel. Illinois law requires this amount to be reimbursed to the marital estate before any division of assets." The mediator looked at the stack of receipts. He looked at Gary. "Is this true, Mr. Miller?" Gary stammered. We were separated, in my mind. The marriage was over." "The marriage is over when the judge says it's over," the mediator snapped. "Until then, that money belonged to the community. You owe the estate 40 grand. Then came the business valuation. Gary wanted half of Brenda's Reno and design. "I helped build that company," Gary argued. "I gave her advice. I supported her." "Mr. Miller," Henderson interrupted, "we have tax returns showing you have made 0 financial contribution to the company. We have sworn affidavits from employees stating you have never worked a day there. And we have audio recordings of you plotting to bleed the company dry. That constitutes an intent to harm the business. No judge will award you shares in a company you actively tried to destroy." Gary slumped in his chair. He was watching his lottery ticket turn into a parking ticket. In the end, the settlement was brutal for him. I kept the house. I kept 100% of my company. I kept my retirement and the trust. Gary got his truck, which I paid off so I wouldn't be liable for the loan, his clothes, and a small cash payout of $20,000, which was his share of the home equity minus the $40,000 he wasted on Linda and the legal fees he caused. $20,000. That was what he walked away with after 25 years. That wouldn't even cover a year of rent in a decent apartment. "This isn't fair," Gary cried when he saw the final numbers. "Fair?" I looked up from the papers. "Fair would be paying me back for the emotional damage you caused. Fair would be giving me back the 20 years of my youth I wasted supporting a man who resented me for my success. This isn't fair, Gary. This is mercy. Sign the papers." He signed. His hand shook. As we walked out of the courthouse, Gary tried to approach me one last time. "Brenda," he said, "what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go?" "You're a man of vision, Gary," I said, quoting his own words back to him. "I'm sure you have big ideas in the pipeline." I put on my sunglasses and walked to my car. I didn't look back. You might be wondering what happened to the lovebirds. Karma, as it turns out, is not just a concept. It's a boomerang. And when you throw it hard enough, it comes back fast. Linda didn't just lose Gary. She lost her social standing. In the suburbs, reputation is currency. When the story got out, and I made sure the correct version got out, that Linda had tried to defraud a friend and ended up with a broke, homeless lover, the doors closed. She was kicked out of the book club. She wasn't invited to the summer gala. Even the realtors who usually gossiped with her started gossiping about her. She became radioactive. She tried to text me about 2 months after the divorce. Brenda, I miss you. I miss us. He manipulated me, too. I was a victim just like you. Can we grab coffee? I didn't block her immediately. I sent one reply. A photo. It was a picture of the trash bags on the curb. This is where trash belongs, Linda. Don't contact me again. Then I blocked her. I heard later she moved to a smaller town in Wisconsin to live with her sister. Good riddance. As for Gary, he burned through his $20,000 settlement in 3 months. He tried to start a consulting business. That failed immediately because he has no skills. He couldn't pay rent on his apartment. He ended up exactly where he deserved to be, his mother's basement. His mother, a woman who always told me I wasn't domestic enough for her son, was now stuck supporting a 55-year-old man who played video games and complained about the world. I saw him once about 6 months later. I was at the grocery store. He was in the checkout lane ahead of me. He looked older. He was wearing a stained t-shirt. He was buying a frozen pizza and a 6-pack of cheap beer. He was arguing with the cashier about a coupon that had expired. I could have said hello. I could have rubbed it in. But I didn't. I just pushed my cart to a different lane. He wasn't worth the breath. He was a stranger. A lesson I had learned in the past. It's been a year since the divorce was finalized. My house looks different now. I tore down the wall in the kitchen, the renovation I was looking at the day he called me. It's open, airy, and full of light. I painted the bedroom a soft sage green. I bought new sheets. I bought a new car. My company had its best year yet. Without the stress of Gary dragging me down at home, my creativity exploded. We just landed a contract to redesign the city library. But the biggest change is inside me. I used to think that being alone meant being lonely. I was terrified of the empty chair at the dinner table. Now I love that chair. That chair represents peace. It represents a life where no one is lying to me, no one is stealing from me, and no one is making me feel small. I joined a hiking club. I started taking pottery classes on Thursday nights. My hands are covered in clay, not receipts. Last week, I met a man at the hiking club. His name is Robert. He's a retired architect. He asked me out for coffee. I'm not looking for a nurse or a banker, he told me, smiling. I'm just looking for good conversation. We split the bill. It was the most romantic thing that's happened to me in decades. I don't know where it will go, and I don't care, because for the first time in my life, I am all by myself. I'm sitting in my garden now, writing this. Buster is chasing a butterfly near the hydrangeas. The sun is setting, casting a golden glow over the house I built, the life I reclaimed. Ladies, if you are listening to this and you feel that knot in your stomach, if you feel like you're walking on eggshells, if you feel like you're paying for the privilege of being disrespected, trust your gut. Check the numbers, and don't be afraid to change the locks. You are the architect of your own life. Don't let anyone else hold the pen. Call to action. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know, have any of you faced a betrayal like this, whether from a partner or a friend? How did you take back your power? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one.